I thought we'd touch on an overlooked subject, I think, for the most part, but a really important point around keeping healthy and fit, when people are out cruising on their boat. And suddenly this has become, I guess, a lot more applicable to everyone else who are now stuck at home in a confined environment like I guess you normally are on a boat. So we want to explore fitness and well-being on board. We lost.
Sorry, it just started raining. Billy just needed to shut the hatches.
Boat life.
Yeah, we're back.
Excellent. Talking about, I guess, fitness and well-being. I mean, obviously you guys have spent a lot of time on boats now over the years and look terrific doing it. And you got a great YouTube channel out there. And some of your blog actually talks about, I guess, workouts and fitness. So, I mean, where do you start with a day-to-day routine, when you're living in a boat like you are now or normally to keep fit?
Yeah, this is normal for us. So this is our daily life. And I mean, where do we start? I guess chronologically, we just wake up and we have a dog. So she helps us get off the boat right away. We get to the beach and we go for a long walk. Sierra likes to...
I'm a morning person. Billy is an evening person. So I like to work out right after we take Jetty to the beach and I get it over with and then I can be productive. You like to get your work done, drink your coffee, and then work out in the evening.
Yep. And then usually sometimes we'll replace a workout with, some sort of water activity, whether it's, kayaking or kiteboarding or just going diving for, a few hours can, it's something physical to do. And yeah.
And so, all right, so you're out in a remote island somewhere.
I can't hear you, Brent. Sorry. Is the connection?
You there? You got me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Excellent. I was just saying, when you take the dog in for a walk on the beach and you start a workout, what does it actually consist of when you're out in a remote location somewhere without any gym equipment or exercise equipment?
So when we're in the States, we both attend different gyms and we love the gym. But when we're out at the boat, we try to kind of simulate similar workouts to what we would do in the gym, but obviously with less equipment. We have a couple of things that we like to use. We have a big sand bag and we can fill it with sand and that can be a weight. And that's awesome. You use that all the time.
Yeah, that's the best, especially being on a catamaran. You don't want to lug heavy weights around for no reason other than to work out with. But the sandbag is amazing. It's like 3 smaller sandbags that fit in a big sandbag. So you could have, a little lightweight, or you can put them all together and have really heavy weight. And you just go to the beach and fill them up, and you could do just an infinite amount of things with that.
And we also have, we use mini bands, so another kind of equipment, but it's super tiny. We have our solar panel structure that we can use to do like pull-ups on, and we even have a set of rings that we attach to the halyards, and we can do like ring rows and stuff. And to get those workouts, I like to use a bunch of different apps. For me, it's much easier when someone gives me the workout than it is for me to design my own, because then I feel like I can slack off and do whatever. So there's a couple different apps that I like to use. I use one called Open Gym, Fit On, and then a couple different YouTube channels that I follow, and they give me a workout and I just do it and then I'm done. You like to create your own a little bit.
Yeah, if I'm feeling it, I'll just kind of make something up, things feel weak or just, I don't know, just make something up. Or I also have an app or two that I'll go to where if I don't want to think, or if I'm feeling lazy, I'll just go to the app so that I don't make it easy for myself.
And a lot of times, like if we are out in a remote area, I'll try to take screenshots of the actual workout. So when we have internet, so when we don't have internet, we have it like saved on our phone somewhere.
Yeah, of course. That's pretty logical. So Open Gym was one of the apps that you mentioned. We should take some notes of these and provide some links on our on the notes afterwards. And I mean, these are obviously apps for people doing exercise in regular places, not just boats in the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the apps are based around being somewhere where you have limited equipment. So it gives
Right.
you workouts where you don't need a barbell or any of that kind of stuff.
And what do you think is like more important? You know, keeping strength or cardio or a combination of both? How do you sort of balance what you're trying to
Definitely
achieve?
a combination.
Yeah, I think everything's a balance, a combination of everything, whether it's strength, cardio, but also, you know, mobility. I think that's one of the most important things, especially living on a small boat.
And one that gets forgotten about a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And then just, you know, the nutrition that goes along with it. But
So let's touch on that then. In terms of nutrition, what's a balanced diet look like for you guys? You know, floating around from island to island with cocktails. You know, way too easy to suck down too often.
Well, let's just say up front, we're not nutrition experts and we're not fitness experts or coaches or anything like that.
We
So just to put that out there.
Yeah, we enjoy to learn new things. We enjoy to be healthy, and we try to be healthy.
And we've been active. We've done sports through our lives and stuff like that. So in terms of nutrition, I think, you know, obviously, again, just balance. We try to eat as much fresh vegetables as we can, especially greens. And we're lucky enough where we can, especially here in the Caribbean, we can go free diving and get lobster and conch and some fish, and that'll make up a big portion of our diet. And then we just try to limit the sugar and you know, processed carbohydrate intake.
Yeah, and with any kind of diet, like even with fresh seafood, you can do in a way where it's not healthy. You could fry your lobster and your fish and all this stuff, but we try our very best to either grill it or saute it or cook it in a way that's a little bit more healthy. And I have a major sweet tooth, so I kind of restrict myself to only eating like sweets on the weekend, and having that like deadline or like 2 days that I can eat it, it helps me a lot.
And we're not perfect. We, you know, we slip. We'll have chicken enchiladas with cheese and you know, one night, and then we'll have sweets on the weekend here and there, and, you know, a cocktail here or there. But it's about balance. So it's just something to shoot for and try to keep it up here instead of just a sundowner every single night.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a really practical approach, and I mean, if you can get that balance right, you know, for anyone, that obviously makes sense, and an area that I need to continue to work on myself. But I mean, do you actually find that seafood is making up a bigger portion of your diet than what it would, you know, on land, just because you've got access to it?
Yeah, in certain places, definitely. And especially when we can get it ourselves. If we can't get it ourselves, it's still kind of a treat, you know, even in the Caribbean when it's
at a restaurant.
they're everywhere. Yeah, but when we're like here, where it's abundant in lobster and fish and conch, and in the Bahamas, it's abundant as well. So yeah, in those places, it's a huge part of our food consumption. In other places in the Caribbean, it's, you know, if we can get it or once in a while. So yeah, probably more in terms of in line with, you know, how someone else who just enjoys seafood would, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, within the past like month and a half, it's been primarily seafood for our protein source, at least.
Yeah, really, right. And obviously, that economically, that makes a lot of sense too. If
Yes.
if it's sitting there underneath your boat.
Exactly.
Absolutely, definitely helps.
And prevents us from going to the grocery store and getting in contact with other people. So that's a big win too.
Yeah. And in terms of going fishing, I mean, are you like spear fishing and free diving a fair bit, or are you using lines and trawling, or I mean, generally, how are you catching your food?
Depending where we are here, we're doing a lot of so in the Bahamas you can spear lobster, but in the area we are now, you have to either use a tickle stick or something called a snare. So Billy's been turning into a professional snare lobsterman, and our other source is conch. So there's quite a few conch around our boat right now.
But yeah, generally we don't have any scuba diving equipment, so generally I think we always prefer to free dive, you know, for conch and lobster and spearfish when we're free diving. And then I think secondarily we'll, you know, anytime we're sailing in deeper water, we have some trolling lines off the back. And then also once in a while, we'll go out with rod and reel for like some inshore fishing for little snapper or something like that.
I was watching an episode that you guys put up the other day, maybe sailing between the islands, and you kept catching barracuda.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you actually ended up eating one yet?
We have not, just because we know there is that risk of ciguatera, and
Yeah.
we're not really in a spot right now where we're gonna need like medical attention or anything like that, and we don't want to risk
Yeah,
it.
it's just not worth it to us. I mean, and locals, especially in the southern Caribbean islands, definitely eat it, especially the smaller ones. I don't know. It's just not worth it. Especially now in the northern Caribbean islands, I think there's even more of a chance of ciguatera. So no, we won't risk it. But do you guys have barracuda down there? And do you guys have ciguatera down there?
Yeah, we have both. Barracuda, I don't think it's a fish that's eaten that often. I mean, we're fortunate that we've got a pretty good supply of lots of other really good eating fish, but they're a bit scary to catch barracuda, from what I've seen. But I think there's a whole episode on how to fish on your boat. Lots to learn on this journey, but generally, you're getting most of your fish from spearfishing, though, by the sound of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're definitely. I would say we're definitely better spear fishermen than fishermen.
But we do try. In the Bahamas this last year, we were trolling a lot, and we were really successful getting some mahi trolling. So that was a big, during that time of the year, that was a big protein source.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the spearfishing and free diving is another fitness element, isn't it? I mean, it all sort of wraps back into one and takes you back to, I guess, the simplicity of people living on, in island nations where they're sustainable from what they do on a day-to-day basis, and get back to that simple living. It's makes life pretty good.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's one aspect of why we really like it. I mean, yeah, it's physical, it's challenging. It forces you to. It's like a practice, right? It forces you to slow down and meditate, and then
it's a
get a good breath hold in.
Yeah, more sustainable in the long run. So.
Yeah, people ask us all the time, like, if we would have scuba gear on the boat, and maybe we would if we had a boat that could handle that, capacity without any negative effects. But it's just, it complicates things, and we enjoy the sport of free diving.
And some of our neighbors behind us, they're big scuba divers, and they were saying the other day, like, wow, like you guys, you just grab your fins and your mask and you go. We're like filling the tanks and loading the boat, and it's heavy, and then they're exhausted by the time they even get in the dinghy because they just did all this work to get their stuff ready. And yeah, the simplicity of it is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to be a common theme amongst people out there cruising, certainly on YouTube. But tell us a little bit about your boat there. So you're on board there in the saloon. What's the design and what is it?
Yeah, it's a Loch Crowther design catamaran. It's a Spindrift 40. Are you familiar with Loch Crowther?
We are indeed. He's a good Australian designer from the heritage of catamaran designs of the world. So absolutely, yeah, great boat.
Yeah, and it's one of his designs, Spindrift 40. It was built in 1988 in Gabon, Africa, home built, but the guy who built it did an incredible job. He used really good materials, and the boat's holding up. Well, when we bought the boat,
it needed a lot of work.
The previous owner, it was his first boat, and some things were let go a little bit.
And even before him, they were let go as well.
Yeah. So in our ownership, we've done a ton of work to the boat, but it's our first multi-hull, and it's been amazing. It's been really fun to learn the boat, to sail the boat, and just we've been having a blast with it.
And we will always be multi-hull people now.
Yeah, we had a Spindrift 40 that we sold here a couple of years back, and I mean they're a really purist catamaran, aren't they? Super fine hulls, very simple accommodation and living on board, but you guys do a great job of making it look
homey.
Absolutely. I mean, we're short enough where the headroom doesn't affect us too much. Maybe just one beam the first few months we owned it, but that's about it. And we don't know any better about like being able to access the hulls from
the
inside the
inside.
saloon. Like we have to walk outside the saloon to go into each hole, but that's all we know on the catamarans, and we're agile enough to be able to do that with not much of an issue. So it's been a great boat for us, definitely.
But certainly a boat that you don't have the luxury of loading up with heavy scuba tanks and weights.
No way.
Or weights and dumbbells and everything. So that's where the sandbag comes in.
Yeah, you're right. The holes are, when you look at the boat from the front, I mean, you know, it looks like little spider legs, and
Toothpicks.
every pound that goes on the boat, it just drops it another centimeter, and people, we had one of our videos was this big generator debate about bringing this 50-pound Honda generator, and people were on all over me for, it's just 50 pounds, it's just 50 pounds, but 50 pounds on like these narrow little holes is a good amount, and it adds up quick.
Yeah, you'd really notice putting weight on the boat pretty quickly, I imagine, and it'll affect your sailing performance a bit if you put too much gear on it.
Yeah, definitely. We've been slowly, we'll go through a purge every month or two, and we've slowly been unloading weight here and there overall. And I think we're seeing, we see the water line rise a little bit every time.
Yeah, right now specifically our water line is pretty high up there because we've been trying not to go to the store, not to get anything. So we're going through a lot of our like stored food, and we're definitely lighter right now.
Yeah, we were loaded up on like a ton of canned food, so we've been going through that. So yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? Credit to you. You know, you're out there and you're doing it, and it's simple, but you know, you're doing it earlier in life, and I think it's fantastic to see, because you know, a big part of what we do a lot of this for is just help give people the confidence and the information to make that jump and get out there and start doing things, because you know, you don't want to be, you know, having to hassle with it when it's too late because your mobility drops. But and really we bring that back to mobility when you're on board, and for people that that need to work on mobility, which is really important, obviously, with balance and not having accidents on board a boat, particularly at sea. It's you know, you find that strength training helps you at all in that process?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in multiple ways. When we go to the beach or we're doing the workout here, we always start off with some sort of dynamic stretching, just, you know, getting your body moving the right way, how it should be moving. And I think that alone helps with mobility. But then you get into your workout where you're also focusing on good form of movement and with some weights or bands or whatever, and that definitely helps just how you move around in your everyday life, and I think that's one of the main reasons we make sure we do our physical activity.
And it's also like sailing a boat, like no matter what boat it is, it takes, yeah, you could have a line and a windlass and all this stuff, but if any of that stuff breaks, you need to be at least in some sort of shape in order to pull it up or raise your sails or anything like that. So that's a big thing for us, because we don't have electric winches or even a windlass that works. So Billy every day is pulling up the anchor, and that's part of his work.
That's our own fault.
Pulling up the anchor. Wow, that's
a good
amazing.
one. Gotta make sure you use your legs on that one, not your back.
Yeah, but we did hear a story of a guy one time, and he his windlass broke and he couldn't get up his anchor, and his family was really worried about him because they didn't know where he was. He wasn't checking in, and it's because he was stuck in one spot without internet because he couldn't get his anchor up.
Yeah, which I don't know. He was an older guy. I don't know.
Yeah, but it could happen.
It could.
Up. Yeah, just make sure you're in enough strength. You have enough strength to get up your essential parts that enable you to move.
Well, I think it's a really good point, in fact, because so many people, I think, want to convert life from in a really nice, luxurious house or apartment straight onto the water, but there is definitely a physical element to it, and you're out there in the ocean, and so sometimes those systems fail because they get so damn complicated, and it's such a ecosystem of things to keep all operating. Certainly, you know, some of the purest, you know, French owners of some of the ultramars that we've been involved with over the years refuse to put electric winches on their boats, and these are big boats. They're like 50-foot boats crossing the Pacific. and they get out there and they're hauling up that mainsail, but they're fit as a fiddle and, you know, got the strength. And that there's an argument in that to get yourself out there and, you know, work a little bit and keep fit from just day-to-day operation of the boat, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And yeah, look, everyone's not going to be in like, you know, professional athlete shape, but
you need to be in good enough shape to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, and then it goes back to the mobility too. I think that's one of the most important things. Just having the strength with the mobility to do what you need to do if something happens, or just to run your boat.
Yeah. So apart from you know, workouts and just generally trying to keep, you know, relatively fit on board, what about water sports? I mean, obviously, so many different toys you can get out there. Rain coming in again.
Just have to turn
Getting
the
a little
fan on.
breeze.
Get a bit warm. Yeah, I mean, what sort of sports or water sports do you guys, apart from free diving, obviously, and fishing, what do you do to for a bit of recreation?
Well,
We're both big surfers. We love to surf. So if there is any sort of a swell, that definitely takes priority. And then you've been kiting forever. I kite a little bit, but Billy's definitely bigger into kiting.
yeah, Sierra is a good kiter. She can ride up wind and jump and land them and stuff. But yeah, we both like kiting. And then we've paddled stand-up paddle boards for a while. We were doing a bunch of races with that, but we recently sold our race boards. I just picked up a used surf ski just to get back into paddling, just especially with the trade wind conditions. I'm drooling over the wind-driven swell coming through the channel, so it's nice to have a craft that I can catch some of those swells and have some fun with.
And I love to swim. So like right now we're in a perfect place where I can, like, instead of taking Jetty to the beach, I can swim her in, and she's my little swimming buddy, and we get exercise that way. And if there's a nice beach, we'll run on the beach.
And that's all these things are, I think, one of the main reasons that we do what we do. We live on a boat and sail, and we love sailing, but we also love sailing to a place where we can surf or kite or paddle, and that's best for us.
Getting to the destination and finding those hot spots.
Exactly.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, again, the sailing is amazing to get there, but yeah, and then to get there though and be able to surf or kite, it's just another level of rewarding.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I took up kiteboarding a couple of years ago, and it's my newfound passion. But partly because I saw so many cruising guys coming across the South Pacific that we get involved with selling their boats are right into kiting. And it makes a lot of sense because it's so compact and it's lightweight, but it's a heck of a thrill when you get it out there in a good steady breeze, right? I mean, it's such an exciting sport.
Absolutely. And it's I mean, you probably see it's physical, but it's not, you know, anyone can do it really. Yeah. If you have enough strength to allow someone to pull you up off the ground and you can keep your core stable enough to do that, you probably have enough strength to kite, right? It's more of a technical sport. So you see a lot of slightly older people doing it in addition to, you know, everyone else. Do you see that?
Yeah, so like you taught kiting. What was your oldest kite student?
Our oldest student was 73 years old. And there has been older students, but yeah, he was, I mean, it took him a while because he was a little bit on the weaker side, but he wanted to do it. He was set on doing it. And in the end, he succeeded. He got some really nice rides in. So yeah, he was so pumped.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. In fact, one of our boat owners who was right into kiting and we helped sell his boat said exactly that it's an old man sport that young people participate in. And that gave me great hope because I realized I'm becoming an old person now. So, and
I don't think so.
I'd like to sit on the in between there somewhere, but it's certainly a sport that looks like you're going to be super fit to do, but like you said, it's more about a bit of strength, but mostly technique, right? And
exactly
what's going on.
Yeah, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like you know, if you start kiting, you know, at your age, and now the older you get, you'll be able to do it forever because you you know how to let the kite do all the work.
It's like riding a bike.
And you're right. I could see like how you can you run into boat owners who do it, you know, because you guys are on. Are you guys in the trade winds, or I mean, you're on the world cruising route, right?
Yeah, I mean, Queensland gets a lot of trade winds the further north you go. So we get southeasterly trade winds, and we do tend to get them a bit down here in between sort of our summer nor'easters, but it's probably more further north. But yeah, we get pretty consistent winds that make it, you know, feasible. Just not nice flat lagoons that we see all the videos of people kite surfing in those. So I assume you've been to some really nice spots with the kiteboard and out there in really flat water.
Yeah, we've been. I'm trying to think the last flat water spot we've been to. I guess Union Island had a really good flat water spot. A lot in the Bahamas. There's some amazing flat water spots, but I like really flat water, or I like waves, like surfing waves. So I'll go strapless on the waves, and that to me is the best. And we had some of those conditions down here in the Caribbean this past season. So
and I like calm as calm can be. That's what I like.
Yeah, I'm not a surfer, so I have complete admiration for the kite surfing guys out there that aren't even strapped onto the board. But what it seems to me though, it's like snowboarding or skiing strapped onto like a T-bar or something that you don't have to paddle back out. So it's like the lazy man's version of surfing.
Totally, yeah. And even when you're on the wave, if you want to go somewhere else on the wave, you can get there pretty easy. Whereas when you're just surfing, you really got to pump down the line or whatever to get to the next section of the wave.
Yeah, I would say surfing is a lot more physical work than kiting.
Yeah.
Kiting is more physical work, like setting up and getting your equipment ready. But when it comes to like the actual sport, surfing is, I would say, more physical.
Way more exhausting. Yeah.
And do you actually set your kite up off the boat itself, or do you go onshore and set it up, or how do you normally run?
It depends. No, we can, and we do set the kite up off the boat often. If there is a nice sandy beach on the windward side of the island, I'll probably go to the beach anyway.
Just because it's easier.
Just because it's a little easier with the lines and stuff. But yeah, I usually just pump the kite up on the trampoline. I'll bring it to the back of the boat. I'll just tie it onto a line back there. And then I'll run my lines just in a big U around the perimeter of the boat, and I'll kind of snag them onto the cleat as I go by so they stay in that corner, and just kind of run through them, attach them to the kite on the upwind side of the kite, and then I'll pull my bar back around, just let all the lines loose in the water, and then I'll hold one center line on the kite and just let the kite drift out as I play out that center line. And then it's just a water relaunch from there, and just, you know, simple water relaunch from the boat.
Eventually, we have to make a video on that whole setup and tell people.
You totally should. You totally should, because I've attempted it a couple of times without a lot of success. You've still got your bar attached to the boat, though, right? I mean, before you when launch the kite.
When we're launching it, yeah, I'll usually have it on like maybe a soft shackle on a cleat or something. Yeah, you don't want to be, unless you're on the swim step ready to fall in the water if it takes off. I think that could be safe enough, but I'll generally have it on a soft shackle on a backed cleat and launch it from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing that video, guys. So please keep me updated there.
Definitely.
So we're going to go to the floor to see if there's any questions out there. I've got Rob here has asked a question. Any idea of your next move heading home?
So we're actually going to do, if this pandemic wasn't going on, we would love to get back to the Bahamas and spend a good amount of time there. There's nothing beats the reefs and fishing and spearfishing there,
and surfing and kiting
but they're closed currently. So we're going to do a rally called the Salty Dog Rally and head straight from the USVI straight back to Florida, and we'll probably leave in about a week or so. So it'll be like
you keep saying a week, it's in like 3 days.
4 days. We're ready to go.
No, everything's
tomorrow.
Prepared. It'll be our longest sail yet. It'll take between like 7 and 9 days, so we're ready to go.
And so you've still got the ability to move between the islands and stuff at the moment, is that right?
In the USVIs, yeah. but just within the USVIs. Even Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, and they're right here. But even within Puerto Rico, I think movement is pretty restricted.
Yeah, and here, like, you're anchored in one spot, and they'll let you go and sail around during the day, but you're supposed to go back to your one spot in the evening. So they're giving you the freedom to sail, but they want you to be in a specific spot.
And because we're in the U.S. territory, going back to Florida will be fine. You know, getting back into the States, we're U.S. citizens, U.S. flag boat, so it won't be a problem.
Yeah, we just can't stop anywhere along the way.
Right. And so what's your, this is your first rally that you're doing? Have you had an experience with rallies before?
No, yeah, this is the first one. We're always kind of just doing our own thing, but yeah, this is our longest passage, and they organized this rally to help people from the Caribbean get back to the States. So we decided just to join it. They're doing it for free or on donation-based payment. So we, you know, contributed a little, and we'll get weather routing and stuff like that. So
yeah, so it's totally worth it. Salty Dog, the rally they're putting together, the information they're sending us is amazing. And we have like 30 boats leaving with us on Monday or Tuesday. So that's good to know.
Wow, that's a big fleet. It seems that rallies are a real great way for people to move around between, you know, these big passages. You can do it in a group, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just it gives me a sense of a little bit of security knowing that there's multiple other boats on our same course. So it makes me feel a little safer.
And we met a bunch of people who just did the arc, I guess the rally across the Atlantic, and everyone we talked to who did that loved it. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good idea.
Excellent. Got a question in here from Edward, who's one of our C11260 owners here in Sydney and an absolute avid windsurfer. And he's asked, how would you describe the windsurfing opportunities in the areas that you're spending time in around the Caribbean?
Yeah, so I've windsurfed, but just I did it like twice. So I was able to ride. And so I don't know too much about windsurfing. We had gotten a lot of older windsurfers who wanted to get into kiting. So I've taught a lot of old windsurfers, but I'm assuming they're looking for the same conditions that you would for kiting, maybe a little bit more wind, in fact. And down here in the Caribbean, in the trade winds, I think there's some good opportunities for windsurfing.
We saw a lot of people windsurfing in Martinique. Like right off Sandals, they had a whole windsurfing lesson area, and there was a lot of people doing it there.
Right. And like with the trade winds in the winter, yeah, you know, up in 20 knots and more at times. It's it's definitely a good area for it. And
tell me too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. You mentioned you had some race paddle boards, which I've got some friends that got right into that, and there's some amazing races between the islands and Hawaii and stuff that people do, and it just seems absolutely crazy. But how sort of deep did you get into paddleboarding?
We were in it pretty good. I think our longest race was, what, 20 miles?
Yeah, we did a couple of 20 mile races. Yeah, and I mean, we weren't like pro. I think one of the bigger races in the US, I was top 35 or so.
Billy was very
but
good.
Not like that top 10 or 20 level. But we did a bunch, and
we were in it for a few years too.
Yeah, we really like it. It's amazing exercise. It was amazing having them on the boat, because again, we're into fitness, and we, one of my favorite things to do with the race boards, I don't know if you like this as much, but the downwind runs, like I described, the wind swell coming through these channels and stuff, and to ride that. Right now I'm using a surf ski to ride them, but on a race board it's just as much fun. It's just like surfing. And
we used to have a trawler, and we would do long runs in the Bahamas and up and down the East Coast. And during those times, yeah, we're either steering or kind of limited in movement, but we would actually, one of us would drive and the other one would practice paddling right next to the boat, because we could only go 5 or 6 knots, yeah, and it was the perfect speed.
Yeah.
So during our movement, we were exercising,
working out for an hour at a time or so.
You weren't like surfing behind the wake like those big wakeboarding boats they were.
No, not quite. We didn't throw that much of a wake.
No, not on that trawler. But we actually, that is something like in Florida, I would hang out by the bridges because in Florida, the big boats have to slow down to go under the bridge, and then they would speed up on the other side. But you could catch like the big sport fishing boats, or the best ones were the Hinkleys with the jet drive, and they would have this massive stern wave that if you paddle quick enough, you can get on the stern wave and ride it for a while. And similar to like the wakeboard boats, but a little spread apart. But it was, that's so much fun.
And these race boards are 12 to 14 feet. And part of some of the races included surfing into the beach. And those were always my favorite when we got to surf the race boards.
Yeah, stand-up paddleboarding is one of those, it's such a great sport that allows you to really, I mean, the simple, really buoyant boards are super easy to ride. Like, I mean, I've got one that we just paddle around in flat water, and they're really common, obviously, on sailboats as well and cruising boats, particularly the inflatable versions, right? Have you ever had an inflatable paddleboard?
I love my inflatable paddleboard. We had one on all three of our boats actually, and this past year we had just gotten a new like surfing stand-up board, so we're like, okay, well, since we have this, we'll leave the inflatable at home. And I regretted it since the day that we left, because our dog, she loves to paddleboard too. So I would paddle her to the beach, and sometimes it's just a little bit more simple than getting in the dinghy and going. And the stuff you can see paddleboarding is amazing. You'll see manatees and dolphins and turtles because you're not making any disturbance. You're kind of just hanging out.
And the inflatables are great to have on a boat too, because you're usually bumping into things and stuff like that.
You don't have to worry about breaking the board or the boat.
Yeah, and they're so much lighter too, right? So they're not really impacting your payload, and that's a great form of exercise to get out there that pretty much anyone can do. Like I argue that anyone can go paddleboarding with the right sort of board, providing.
Absolutely, yeah. Big wide inflatable, you know, flat water, yeah, anyone can learn that. And if you're not comfortable standing up, you could always go on your knees, and plenty of people do that as well.
Yeah. What I think is a lot harder than it looks, though, is getting out in the surf where the water is a lot more chopped up. That is much harder than flat water. And you guys are out in the surf and, doing these races offshore. Man, you must have like super core to keep your balance out and that stuff. How do you manage choppy water like that?
Yeah.
I think something that helped us is we didn't only race paddleboards, we also competed in surf style paddleboards. And those boards are literally like, if you take a short board, put yourself on it and paddle around, and it's so difficult. So that aspect put on a race board really, really helps in all conditions.
Yeah, so our surfing paddleboards are really thin, and like if you can almost not stand on them staying still. You have to keep paddling. So yeah, just doing that for fun in the waves and surfing with them helped us train for being in the rough water on the race boards. And yeah, it's I don't know, just practice. Honestly, like no workouts can prepare you for that. They can help. They can help just have your base fitness at a good level. But
being on the water is the only thing that will help you in that situation. Really.
Yeah, just get on the board in the rough stuff.
We had a question here from Jenny. How do the inflatable stand-up paddleboards cope with coral and oysters? It's a good question.
It depends on what kind of board you have. And with anything, you get what you pay for. So our good friend is actually a board designer, and he has a model of inflatable boards. And it depends what they're made with. His was made with like a military grade PVC. And we would take that thing on like rocky beaches, and we've never had any issues, but we've never like thrown it or cut it with a knife or anything like that. But again, you get what you pay for, so just make sure you do research on whatever board you're getting.
Yeah, I think they're well, at least the one we had was surprisingly durable on stuff like that. But I think if you're banging into oysters and sharp reef and stuff like that, you're already pushing it. So
just like a dinghy, because they're pretty much made with the same material. So if you run something up with a dinghy and do it the same thing on the paddleboard, you're probably going to get a hole or a piercing
sooner or later.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, Billy, you've done some big downwind legs and stuff in some of those races. Have you ever strapped on a foil?
So I have foiled. I've never like done stand-up paddle foiling, I don't
Done it
think.
behind the boat.
But yeah, we foiled behind the boat. I foiled behind a kite before, and our friend works for a company that does the electric foils, so we got to do that. And
That was cool.
all that stuff is a blast. The first one I ever did was behind a kite, and I couldn't believe how different it was from any other board sport or water sport I've ever done. It, like, compared to kiteboarding, it is a completely different sport.
Yeah, it looks amazing because obviously for kiteboarding at least, you don't need much wind at all really, and you tend to be in really flat conditions. You always see the kite foilers out down here when there's like 10 knots, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, probably in 10 knots of wind with like a 12-meter kite maybe, and even if there is some chop, you're still flying. You don't even feel it.
Yeah, but how on earth did you get to do that so quickly? I mean, we started playing. I've got a friend that had that's got a foil behind a wakeboard boat. We started playing with, and man, they are very twitchy, very sensitive to work out how to use. How did you get into it?
I mean, we worked at a kiteboard shop, so we had access to them, and one of the guys who worked there taught me behind the kite, and then just practice. I think if anyone's thinking about learning how to foil, behind the boat or the electric foil are definitely the easier ways to learn how to ride a foil relatively. But yeah, it's just practice.
Yeah, it's amazing to see some of that technology from like America's Cup trickling all the way down to surfing and kite surfing now.
It's incredible. It's gonna be really interesting to see how that stuff progresses. Now, have you seen the wings that they're using? It looks like a kiteboarding kite,
but
with like handles
and no harness or anything.
Yeah, what do they call those things? Like a wing, special kite wing. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And oh man, I haven't tried that yet, but that looks like a blast and simple.
Yeah, and really, again, heavy on your arms and a lot of strength required by looks of it. Pretty tricky. Easy for Kai Lenny, but challenging for the regular population.
Yeah, because that one you don't even have a harness, so you're completely that one actually would probably take a lot of strength.
Yeah, definitely, definitely a lot of practice.
Yeah. Excellent, cool. Well, listen, guys, to get more information about your videos and blogs, obviously you've got a fantastic channel. Just Tula's Endless Summer, did I say it? Tula's Endless Summer?
Tula. Yeah, Tula's Endless Summer.
And what's the meaning behind that?
Tula was the name of my first sailboat I had. I had a small little 26-foot pocket cruiser monohull, and that's the boat that started the whole adventure. I sailed down the east coast of the U.S. in that small boat by myself, and I met Sierra in Florida, and the rest is history.
And Tula means balance in Sanskrit, so yes, it's the name of the first boat, but it also has deeper meaning behind it now because balance in everything is very, very important.
Yeah,
especially
excellent.
in a boat.
And you're on a catamaran, so it's goes hand in hand. So that's excellent. All right, so I'll just share your website here too, because I think there's some really good stuff on there. If anyone that's interested in some just general fitness and health on board boats, so sure it's on summer.com and there's a whole section dedicated to workouts. And obviously you guys aren't professionals in this area, but I think it's really interesting resource to go through some of those different programs that you've got there.
No, I can't really hear you, Brent. Sorry.
You there?
Yeah, I got you now.
Sorry. Yeah. So I was just referring to your website there with your different workouts and some options there to follow up for people. But are you guys still shooting videos at the moment, or what's?
Yeah, we're doing little bits here and there. Like we did a big catch, cook, clean with our conch the other day, and we're going to be doing a big video with preparing for our sail, so cleaning the bottom, checking the rig, grocery shopping, and then of course our 7 days offshore. So yeah, a lot of this time was put towards editing all of our old footage, but now back into making the videos.
Excellent. And so when this is all over and we're all free to go wherever and have full freedom, where do you think you're going to go? What's on the bucket list?
Bucket list. Well, man, a lot of things. I think within the next 2 years, I know that's a long time frame, and we usually don't plan out that far ahead, but we have some big projects in the works in the future. But I have a feeling that I have a feeling that we're going to probably get into the Western Caribbean, Central America, possibly go through the Panama Canal if it's open, and then maybe hang out on the west coast of Central and North America for a while. I don't know if we'll cross. We'd really like to cross the Pacific and get to French Polynesia, but we have a dog on board, and
it's pretty complicated with the dog. Some countries don't even allow you in, so we don't really want to risk that or risk her health and safety of making her stay on the boat all the time. So we'll choose places that we can absolutely take her to the beach.
Yeah, awesome. And I forgot to ask actually, what was your first boat? You mentioned earlier you had trawlers and little sailboats, and where did it all start?
Man, my first boat. I've always had boats growing up. My dad had center consoles. He always had a bunch of Boston Whalers behind. Are you familiar with Boston Whaler?
I am indeed, yeah.
So he's always had like 6 or 7 Boston Whalers.
He's a Boston Whaler hoarder.
Behind our garage, just stored like in all different conditions. Some were upside down with holes in them. Some were ready to go. And so he gave me a 13-foot Boston Whaler hull, let me fix it up, helped me buy an engine for it. Eventually we sold that. He let me fix up a 16-foot Whaler. So it kind of started from there. I had an old houseboat in college that I would live on while I lifeguarded in the summertime. And then my real first cruising boat was that small 26-foot pocket cruiser. It was a Morris Francis, a little double ender, classic, pretty boat. And then from there we had a trawler, an old Marine Trader trawler, single diesel engine. And then from there we're now on Adrenaline that we've had for almost 3 years now.
And where did you learn to sail along that path? Did you just work it out as you went, or did you get some training?
Kiting comes back into play.
Yeah, sure. Kiting. Yeah, so I started kiting in like I guess 10th or 11th grade in high school, and that's really where I started sailing. Is kiteboarding. My friend showed me how to sail a sunfish in college, and I was like, wait a minute, this is the same exact thing as kiteboarding, except the sail's always like this instead of moving around. So from there, it was just maybe my uncle had a boat, so I went out once or twice with him. And then maybe, I think on vacation, we went on a day charter, and I was just drilling that guy with sailing questions. He actually loved it because it's usually a booze cruise for him, and he enjoyed having someone who really wanted to learn about sailing. And then, from there, it was just restoring that old double ender and just sailing that everywhere I could, trying not to start the engine ever. So,
and my dad, we always had center consoles as well, so sailing was never like a thing. So I never even got on a sailboat before I met Billy on Tula.
Learn on tour. Excellent. Well, that's awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us on the other side of the world, from your boat to our amazing backdrop here, and really appreciate some insights on how to stay fit. And I think I'll take some of that up just where we are, regardless of being on a boat or not. So thanks guys, and stay safe and keep sailing. We really look forward to seeing the future videos.
Hey, thanks so much, Brent. Thanks for having us on, and you guys all stay safe as well. Hopefully we meet up in person one of these days, sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep coming down on the Pacific trades, and you'll get to us eventually.
Eventually.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
See you, Brent.